Hi, my name is Sierra Waite, and today I'll be presenting over question 43. So first we're going to look at the Human Connectome project. And the goal of this 5-year project was to create and share a database of the connectivity of the human brain. So what they really wanted to get out of this was a shareable database that allowed collaboration from many neuroscientists. And they focused on the functional and structural connectivity. So just as a reminder, the functional connectivity is a statistical notion, and it looks at the correlational relationship between the activity of different brain regions. And the structural connectivity looks at the anatomical connections between different brain regions or neurons. So I found 2 images on the right, and they're from the Human Connectome Project's website. The top one shows a coronal view of diffusion tensor imaging data, and the bottom one shows white matter fibers of the corpus callosum and brainstem pathways. So this just gives you an idea of the type of data being produced by this project. A paper from Nature Neuroscience outlined the main elements of the HCP. The first one was to use multimodal techniques to collect data from as many subjects as possible. And the goal with this was to get a large sample size and acquire the data using different imaging techniques. The second element was to collect data using high spatial and temporal resolution, and they just wanted to remove as much noise as they could by using state-of-the-art techniques. The third element was to represent data in a standardized format that provides brain ordinates. And the format that they used was called CI-FTI, and this combined voxels into one file and represented the gray matter geometrically. And then those representations were called brain ordinates or brain coordinates. The fourth element was to use connectivity to create parcellations. And parcellations are basically just divisions into landmarks and localizers throughout the brain. And I actually used an image from the Nature Neuroscience paper that shows an example of cortical parcellation. The fifth element was to share results and code for analysis, and they shared this as statistical maps to protect the privacy of the participants. And sharing this data helped other neuroscientists identify patterns and make comparisons without having to have the expense of their own imaging. So basically, all of these goals came together to make neuroimaging standardized and systematic. So next, we're going to look at the default mode network. And this is the network that is active in a resting state, which is when the participant is not instructed to perform any type of tasks. And there's different brain areas that are involved in this. So typically, you'll see the medial posterior cortex, and more specifically, the posterior cingulate cortex of this area. You'll also see the medial frontal cortex and some areas around the temporoparietal junction. And the image on the left just shows the areas involved in the default mode network compared to task performance experiments. So why is looking at the resting state of the brain so important? Well, first, it provides a baseline for comparison. And this is important for studies like the HCP, since they're providing a database for future studies, and it also allows them to make comparisons across different populations. Next, it's possible that there's a correlation between the cognitive disorders and impaired default mode network function. And this could possibly be seen in epilepsy, Parkinson's disease, ADHD, and there have been some studies that actually found correlations between deteriorating default mode network connectivity and markers of early Alzheimer's disease. So it's possible that this could end up being used as a diagnostic tool. Finally, it's an important tool for studying the effective connectivity of the brain. And the effective connectivity is how the neural systems interact. This gives us a more causal model of information flow throughout the brain. So by understanding these kinds of connections, by studying the default mode network, it could be very valuable to our insight of human cognition. And that's all I've got for today, so thank you for watching.